Section 1. Introduction. The unexpected scenario. In the early months of 2025, 9 out of 10 economists on Wall Street were saying the same thing. Fasten your seatbelts, the storm is coming. And frankly, they weren't wrong. Unfortunately, we had a massive dead bomb ready to explode, a deadlocked Congress in Washington, and a poor administration that had reignited trade wars. Everyone moved to cash. Everyone ran for the bunkers. But there was a truth leaking through the cracks of the system. The debt cycle had grown so large that allowing the system to collapse would mean setting the world back 100 years. That's why an invisible hand pushed the button to keep the markets afloat. But then something happened that had never been seen before in financial history. The economy began to defy gravity. Today, we won't just talk about numbers. Today, we'll talk about how money changed hands in 2025, how the middle class got squeezed into a tight corner while the stock market soared, what we call the big divergence. Welcome to the channel. I'm FinVİsion. Here is the uncensored and detailed autopsy of the 2025 US economy. Section 2. Dark winter, government shutdown and credit crunch. Let's remember January 2025. The longest government shutdown in history took place, lasting exactly 38 days. This wasn't just about government employees not getting paid. It meant the cash flow for thousands of small businesses doing work for the state was cut off. During that period, small caps bled out. The Russell 2000 index lost a staggering 12% in the January-February period alone. Credit card delinquency rates hit record highs because the American consumer had unfortunately exhausted all their savings in 2024. Banks shut off the credit taps. This was exactly what we call a credit crunch. In reality, this was a stress test. While the Fed was measuring how long the market would hold out, the giants of the banking sector were lying in wait to swallow the weak links. Liquidity had dried up, and for the person on the street, money had turned into a dream. So why didn't the market crash? Because smart money knew exactly that this crisis would force the Fed to cut interest rates. Bad news was in fact good news for the market. Section 3. Trade wars and friend shoring. The Independence Day tariffs that went into effect in April weren't just a tax. They were a total redrawing of the global trade map. As a result, while ties with China became strained, the US shifted its supply chain to friend-shoring partners. Mexico and Vietnam became the secret winners of 2025. This strategic shift wasn't the end of globalization, but the beginning of bloc formation. The era of cheap goods was over. The era of secure goods had begun. This meant costs would rise permanently, making inflation a structural issue. But the real story was happening domestically. Factories in the Rust Belt states, which had been rusting and unworkable for years, started running again. The manufacturing PMI signal showed expansion for the first time in 3 years, crossing the 50 mark. But this came at a price. Costs for tech companies increased significantly. Giants like Apple and Tesla had to spend billions of dollars to protect their supply chains. This sparked a power struggle between the old economy, industry, and the new economy, tech, in the stock market until artificial intelligence took the stage. Section 4. Silicon Valley's Renaissance. AI agents. Listen closely here because this was the most important moment that changed the fate of 2025. So in 2023 and 2024, we played with chatbots, but in 2025, the era of AI agents began. Now, AI wasn't just answering questions, it was doing the work for you. In finance, law, and software sectors, AI agents started doing the work a junior employee would take 10 hours to do in just 3 minutes and at zero cost. Unfortunately, that was the reality. This was the silent start of the white-collar recession. Companies froze hiring while driving their productivity charts into the stratosphere. Codes replacing human labor became the greatest tool for wealth transfer to capital owners in history. S&P 500 companies announced record margins in their Q2 earnings reports. Why? Because while their revenues increased, personnel expenses remained flat or dropped. They simply didn't need as many people anymore. Microsoft and Google turned their Copilot systems into the operating system for the entire American business world. AI literally took over the system built by humanity. This was a productivity explosion, yes, but it also created what Wall Street loves most: margin expansion. Section 5. The secret winner. Energy crisis and the nuclear turn. AI is great, but what does it run on? Electricity, and a lot of it. By mid-2025, the energy demand from data centers grew so much that the US power grid began to sound the alarm. Furthermore, the annual water consumption of AI reached a staggering 765 billion liters. That's more than the total global consumption of bottled water. Energy was no longer just a utility. It became a strategic raw material. When renewable energy wasn't enough to meet this massive demand, the world turned back to the power it had feared for decades. Here is the sector the financial media didn't headline much, kept almost secret, but that made a fortune for its investors. Energy. Tech giants like Amazon and Google made their own nuclear energy deals. Stocks of companies producing small modular reactors, SMRs, went through the roof. 2025 went down in history as the year uranium became the new gold. If you only had tech in your portfolio, you won. But if you added energy, you absolutely crushed the market. Section 6. Fed's capitulation. Inflation or recession. Toward the end of the year, the Fed reached a crossroads and it had to choose a side. Inflation had dropped to 2.7%, but the commercial real estate sector and regional banks were on the verge of collapse due to high interest rates. The commercial real estate sector was ticking like a time bomb. Debt for empty office buildings had become unsustainable. The Fed had to either keep rates high to kill inflation or cut rates to save the banks. The Fed, albeit with difficulty, made its choice. Saving the system is more important than fighting inflation. Finally, in December, the rate cut arrived. The Fed lowered the discount rate by 25 basis points to 3.75%. The subsequent injection of $40 billion in liquidity, repo operations, was essentially a silent bailout. The market smelled it immediately. The Fed put was back. This was the main spark that sent risk appetite through the roof. Section 7. Digital gold and geopolitical safe havens. The world in 2025 was messy, not just economically but geopolitically as well. While traditional investors ran to gold to feel safe, the digital generation and corporate treasuries turned to Bitcoin. The power of decentralized finance, DeFi, became a sanctuary for those seeking a neutral zone in a world where the dollar was used as a weapon. Even the reserve accumulation strategies of nations began to change, especially with the FED opening the money taps and the prevailing global climate of distrust. Bitcoin transformed from a speculative tool into an asset that confirmed the digital gold thesis. ETF inflows from giants like BlackRock broke unbelievable records in the final quarter of the year. 2025 was the year crypto moved from the casino table to the treasury room. Section 8. Societal impact. Losing time sovereignty. All these trillions of dollars, record-breaking markets, and the AI revolution. But did the life of the person on the street get easier? Did standards of living rise? Statistics say no. Asset ownership owners, those with stocks, houses, gold, certainly got wealthier in 2025. But unfortunately, those who had to live solely by their labor, the salaried employees, felt their purchasing power erode even as inflation fell. RI increased productivity but decreased job security. The real issue was what we call the K-shaped recovery. The top was soaring while the bottom was being pulled down. This was a forest where the social contract was torn and only those with financial literacy survived. The rat race is spinning faster now. If you are earning money in this system by only selling your time, 2025 taught you this.
The fundamental choice: relentlessly selling your time or building a diversified portfolio where your capital.
Section 9. Closing and 2026 Strategy. 2025 is over. The numbers are out. But what matters is what you will do in 2026. Ahead of us are debt crises and perhaps a second wave of inflation. The market is always right, but it is not always fair. Ensuring justice is up to your own financial consciousness. On this channel, our goal isn't just to comment on the stock market. Our goal is to understand this financial system and provide you with the tools to reclaim your stolen life and your time sovereignty. If you enjoyed this deep dive analysis, hit the like button as a sign of respect for the effort. The future belongs to those who are prepared. See you in the next video.